Hey, so we're back with a brand new movie on what if Naruto was kidnapped some girl in fairy tale. But before we start, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin the story. East. Naruto thought, moving in the direction. He walked through the dead wasteland, the slight vision of a forestry on the horizon. It's a bit of a wide range to use as a starting point for searching for Cyclone. I have no idea where he could possibly be. So what should I do? Just search around until I can find some idea of where he is? Naruto sighed loudly. His sigh filling the silent wasteland. He was the only moving thing within sight. Naruto pulled his arms behind his head, resting his head in his hands as he walked, contemplating on his next course of action. I guess there's nothing else I can do, he thought in his mind. I'll just have to search around until I find something. Someone must have seen Cyclone anyway, he's pretty hard to miss. He thought more optimistically, dropping his relaxed body stance. He took off at an impressive speed, a dust cloud forming behind his feet as he ran east, towards adventure, towards Hop, towards Cyclone. This is the country of Bosco? Naruto looked around at the scenery in surprise. He had passed over the border of Fury and Bosco a few minutes ago and had been running well into the country. He looked around. The entire time he had ran he had seen nothing, heard nothing but the sound of his breath and his feet pounding against the ground. The land was just a continuation of the wasteland in Fury, if only just a lot hotter. For miles ahead there seemed to be no sign of civilization anywhere. How can this be called a country? Naruto asked aloud. He didn't waste any more time pondering the situation of the land. He wanted to find Cyclone. He began walking through the desolate, barren wasteland. And it wasn't long before the heat began getting to him. Every few minutes or so as he walked, he would see glimpses of a younger him, running or fighting or alone. Mirages, hallucinations caused by the heat. It wasn't hard to guess what was happening. The heat was unbearable. Even for a mage, they couldn't escape the natural hardships of extreme weather. He heard a massive roar to the left of him. Instantly the blonde's face lit up. See Cyclone, he whispered in overwhelming happiness. There stood the massive beast. His scales were a dark sky blue, with a white eggshell-colored underbelly, large impressive wings, that looked like feathers rather than scales, with spikes at the tip of his wings. The bright blue eyes were staring away at something. Cyclone, it's been so long, but I finally found you, Naruto shouted, running towards the massive dragon. As he ran towards the dragon he failed to notice how the scenery was changing, going from a barren, dull brown wasteland to a vibrant green forest. Cyclone. Naruto stood next to the dragon, which did not respond. He moved around to get in front of the dragon, but stopped as he found what the dragon was looking at. Lying on the floor was a couple, a man and a woman, both bloodied and lifeless. One with remarkably long red hair, the other with blonde spiky hair similar to himself. Both had warm, content smiles on their faces, despite blood seeping from their lips. They were both dead, cradling each other and something in between them. But it wasn't silent. In fact, the cry of a baby broke all the silence there could possibly be. Naruto stared at the small baby wrapped in bundles, then towards the dragon staring down at it. Is this the day Cyclone found me? Are those my real parents? Naruto looked towards the happy, yet dead couple, smiling towards the small baby, their heads tilted forwards so their baby would be the last thing they would see in this world. So this was what was making all the racket. The dragon spoke out. For a dragon, although deep, his voice sounded particularly young. Naruto always remembered Cyclone as young sounding, but he was always so wise. A poor thing like you, now alone in the wilderness, your parents taken from you in the cruelest of ways. But now what to do with you? Naruto smiled. This would be the moment when Cyclone would take him in and raise him like a son. You're surely going to die anyway from starvation, which will be a slow, tortuous death. Perhaps I should ease your passing. Cyclone pondered, lifting his claw up and positioning the tip above the baby Naruto. What? Naruto stared in horror at the scene in front of him. All those years ago, Cyclone intended to kill him. As Cyclone was about to strike, his baby self stopped crying. Looking up at the massive claw, he only giggled as purely as babies do. Its small hands wrapped around the tip of the claw, shaking it slightly and playing with it, all the while his baby self laughing loudly. Naruto looked towards the dragon, who looked at the small baby in confusion, but his mouth eventually morphed into a warm smile. I can't possibly harm one as weak and defenseless as you. Come, little one, let's find you somewhere better to rest. But first, let's allow your parents to rest peacefully. Cyclone smiled. Digging his claws into the ground he made a deep hole. Gently lifting the baby Naruto out of his parents' embrace he lifted the entwined bodies of the man and woman and placed them in the hole. Using some bark of a tree to act as a lid to protect their bodies from the earth he covered the makeshift grave back up with dirt burying it back up. Come. He spoke to the baby, holding it carefully in its cupped hands of its front legs. Cyclone took off into the air, with Naruto looking up from below. Naruto didn't feel the hallucination fade, rather he felt as if he was fast-forwarding through time, landing in a new place, still within forestry, but Cyclone now lay in front of a large moss-covered cave, looking as if he was trying to sleep. Naruto looked over to his right. A small blonde bundledom himself was sneaking up on the dragon with a mischievous grin on his face. It was himself again, but he must have been around the age of 6. As the younger Naruto got closer, he was about to jump in the air and pounce on the dragon's back. Don't even try it. The dragon's eye opened slowly and lazily, raising its head. How did you know I was there? The young Naruto moaned out. He was sure Cyclone wouldn't have caught him this time. You're still making too much noise when you walk. Dragons are one with the earth. We feel things more easily than you humans do. Cyclone explained. Stand upright and flapping his wings just the once to click out all the aches. The young Naruto pouted, losing his game of trying to sneak up on the dragon again. Suddenly a large victorious grin grew on his face. Look Dad, I finally got it down. He ran a few steps away from Cyclone before taking a stance. Furyu no Saruto Ibai. His younger self shouted, releasing a crescent-shaped blade of wind from his arm. It cut through several trees before dissipating. Naruto cringed with each tree crashing to the ground. Good, good. Tomorrow we'll get started on your first Dragon Slayer secret art. Cyclone looked at the small bit of destruction with approval. Hey Dad, why are teaching me a magic that can kill your species? The young Naruto asked with a confused look on his face, looking up towards the dragon for an answer. Because one day dragons might not be here, we need someone to be able to pass on our legacy. Cyclone explained briefly. Also maybe one day you might cross a dragon so evil, so terrible no normal magic can kill it. I am giving you the tools to protect yourself and defeat that monster. I am putting my faith in you, Naruto. As other dragons around the world are putting their faith in their children, to master the art of dragon slaying, and to protect this world. This is a year before I lost Cyclone, I remember this. It was the first time Cyclone ever mentioned anything about dragons not being there. Naruto watched the scene from afar. The scene began fading out as his younger self and Cyclone walked into the cave together. Suddenly, just like before, he felt himself getting transported across time and space, but he knew he was still in the Bosco wasteland. He landed in a rather elegant-looking corridor, with large windows allow light to break in and hit the gleaming white walls. I recognize this place. Naruto looked around. Eventually he found what he should probably be looking for in these hallucinations. Naruto saw himself, about 9 years old, crouching behind the door of the slightly opened council chamber. He walked over and stood next his younger self, listening to what he was listening into. Fairy Tail is a disgrace. He heard the council member Org rant about Fairy Tail again. Just look at what they've done now. Destruction of a tower, destruction of a bank, destruction of a 500 feet 000J rare artifact. And how does Makarov respond to this? By posting us a letter of himself mooning the camera. Naruto chuckled at the memory. Looking down, he found his younger self giggling like crazy. Boy, what a fun place Fairy Tail must be. He heard his younger self giggle out quietly. His laughter suddenly faded, his whole body trembled, getting goosebumps, his face vibrated violently, as if he was trying to repress something. And Naruto knew exactly what it was. He remembered those days at the council. How he would try to repress the screams of anguish and torture from his targets on his missions, the terror in the eyes of those he had to use debility on. His younger self crawled up into the fetal position, his head resting in his arms. Small, almost silent sobs were heard faintly. I have to get away from here, no matter how hard it will hurt Uranai-Jii-chan. I think I got it. Naruto smiled widely, his clones staring back at him with equal smiles. What do you reckon, Itachi? I think your training is complete. You asked how to use less magic in each clone, as I do with Crow, and I think you've mastered it. You're using almost 3/4 of the magic you were originally using in each one. The older raven-haired Itachi smiled down towards the blonde. I remember this. Naruto looked at the memory hallucination from afar. He remembered him asking Itachi about it after he undertook a job with the S-class mage. It was a few months before Itachi's death. Can I ask you something, Itachi? His younger self looked up to the raven-haired elite. Why have you taken such an interest in me? I mean, you don't have to, yet you help me with any problem I have. You're always looking out for me, yet I never really see you communicating with other members. Itachi's lip pursed out, as if contemplating the question. I see a great destiny in you, Naruto. You will do wondrous things no matter what. Your actions will change the world. I just want to make sure I'm giving you a push in the right direction. Itachi's onyx eyes closed as he smiled. Plus, you're the same age as my brother, Sasuke. And I'd like Sasuke to make a new friend. I'm hoping you will be the friend Sasuke so desperately needs. Naruto smiled back. Both Narutos did. I promise, Itachi. Naruto spoke with his younger self simultaneously, remembering the words as if he had spoke them yesterday. If Sasuke and I ever meet, I will definitely be friends with him. Naruto found an older version of his younger self running through the green hedges of a maze. His own body felt as if it was floating. These hallucinations were becoming more and more vivid, more realistic. As if he was actually stepping back in time to relive these events. I know this place. Naruto looked around at the surroundings. This is the S-Class trial exam when I was 14, the year I became a S-Class mage. It's also the final test. From what I've seen so far, I've been reliving important moments in my life. What's so significant about this moment? Naruto wondered as he watched his younger self run. Bad luck, Naruto. Naruto saw his younger self skid to a halt, looking. They both found a younger 19-year-old Laxus standing in a large square arena within the maze. You took a wrong turn and ended up in a very hard battle. Only by defeating me can you continue ahead and collect one of the 3 crystals Makarov has left for winners to obtain. But the bad news isn't that out of the 10 of you in this final task only 3 of you have the possibility of winning. It's bad for you because I've got problems with holding back, the biggest one being I don't like to. Laxus grinned in anticipation for the battle. You were really unlucky, guild arts might have gone easier on you. I'm just glad I didn't get Mistgun. I know nothing of his abilities. He just showed up one day at the guild, hid for a while, and next thing we knew he was a S-Class mage and never had to be in the guild. I'm surprised he even agreed to take part in this task. Naruto informed a now annoyed-looking Laxus. But as you said, I can't afford to waste time here. I've got to collect one of those crystals. Naruto crossed his arms over his chest, the familiar red wind circling around his body quickly, wrapping him in a vortex of red wind before seeping back into his body. His skin turned a dark red, while his eyes turned blood red with slitted pupils. Dysphoria. Schadenfreude. Naruto watched as his younger self slipped into that psychotic form. Is that what I really look like when I use that magic? It was honestly quite frightening. He could understand the opponent's fear when they saw it, but apart from Laxus and Gaara, he had only ever had to use Schadenfreude against Sasuke. He looked over to Laxus, who was clipping off his cape whilst grinning like a maniac. I always knew you were strong, Naruto, and you don't flaunt your power like that idiot Natsu. That's a good style, I respect that in your power. Laxus spoke quietly. He hadn't heard it before, but now Naruto could hear what Laxus said, and his reason for reliving this became clear. It's when I first won Laxus's true respect, something he doesn't give out to too many people. I always thought it was because I beat him in this fight. Naruto looked at Laxus, who was charging himself with an electric current enveloping his body. Let's do this. Naruto heard his younger self screech madly with laughter, rocketing towards the scarred blonde. Bring it on. Laxus roared in return, lunging towards the younger Naruto. White flashed before his eyes moments before they clashed, and suddenly Naruto felt himself move to a new place. Naruto stood alone, as he had done most of his life. Fairy Tail had given him a place to belong to, but since the death of Itachi his contact with others was minimal. He was not confident enough to approach them first. He was scared at how easily they would judge him if they knew his past. But here he was, standing before them in the spotlight. Makarov suddenly climbed the stairs to the stage to the right of him. On his left were Urza and Mira, standing a few meters away from him on the stage and closer together. Throughout the wait for Makarov, the stares of admiration had remained solely focused on Mira and Urza, as if Naruto was not even standing up on the stage in the eyes of the other Fairy Tail members. Makarov came and stood at the front of the stage in the middle, clearing his throat before addressing the listening Fairy Tail members. The members' eyes fixing on Makarov now. The past few years for Fairy Tail have been hard. Our number of S-Class mages had dropped to just 2, myself and Guildarts, following the deaths of Reikari and Itachi and the excommunication of Ivan. Over the past years that number has increased, with Mistgun and Laxus both rising to S-Class level. But this year, this is the year when Fairy Tail's luck turns around. 3 of our mages have shown they have what it takes to become S-Class mages this year in the trials. Makarov spoke proudly to the members standing below him. He quickly turned to the 3 mages stood on stage, moving towards Urza. In third place was Urza Scarlet, showing marvelous skill and strategy in Task 3, Coordination through the Maze. Makarov smiled, handing Urza something out of Naruto's vision before moving to Mirajan. In second place was Mirajane, who showed ferocious strength and courage in Task 1, the Battle Royale. Handing something to Mira like he did Urza, Makarov smiled widely at the white-haired girl before moving finally over to Naruto. And finally, the overall winner of this year's S-Class Mage promotional trial, Naruto Uzumaki. Excelling in all 3 of this year's tasks, particularly will and determination in Task 2, the Caves of Truth. And with a special recommendation for a promotion from our own Laxus Drayar. It is a privileged honor to award you with this. Your S-Class Mage Identification Card. Makarov held his hand out, in the palm of his hand. In his palm was an identification card. The usual style for Fairy Tail was red ink on white card, but this card, while still white paper, had gold ink instead of red, with designed and unique S's in each corner of the card. As Naruto took his card, Makarov allowed the cheering and applause to commence. As Urza and Mira basked in the applause and adoration, Naruto's face was still fixed on the card, ignoring everything else in the world. A small smile grew on his face. I did it, Itachi. On your knees. Naruto arrived just at the end of a fight. He was wondering when he'd see one of these. He and Sasuke battling it out once again, going full out, but what was so important about this fight that he came back to see it again? He saw himself standing above Sasuke, who was forced to his knees by the blonde's hand pressing down on his skull. Well, for once you win, Naruto. Sasuke smirked cockily. Even in defeat, he looked up at the blonde, who was staring back down impassively. This isn't over yet. Naruto replied sternly. You're constantly gaining power, you're becoming a danger not just to Fairy Tail but to the world. I have to do this, Sasuke. I promised Itachi I would look after you. I can't do that if you continue to take on the world. It's a fight you can't win. So what are you going to do? Kill me? That's not really protecting me, is it? Sasuke replied with a humored chuckle, completely finding the situation rather entertaining. No, I'm not going to kill you. But for Itachi's sake, I will take away what gives you strength. You will live out a normal life. Something Itachi wanted. Naruto closed his eyes, focusing intently. I'm sorry, Sasuke. Dysphoria. Debility. Naruto. Sasuke's eyes widened in horror, his body shot up, one of his hands grasping Naruto's head as well. Glaring madly at Naruto, his copy wheel eye activated, the tomo spinning madly in each eye. His mind allow information to pour in. If you take my strength away, I will make sure you lose yours as well. Naruto's eyes widened as the tomo suddenly stopped spinning. Dysphoria. Debility. They both felt the drain of their strength, of their magic leaving through their head and into the hand of the other. Their magics funneled out of one and into the other. They felt the draining field come to a halt, pushing each other away. I feel fine. Sasuke spoke quietly, thinking as he stared at his hand, flexing it then tightening it into a fist. I don't feel weak at all. So shall we continue? Sasuke smirked with new energy. Thunder make. Lightning strike sword. Sasuke built up magic in his arm, yet nothing happened. He tried again and again but nothing happened. Why can't I use magic? He screamed in frustration. Looks like I was successful. Naruto smiled. Furyu no Hoko. He attempted to blow Sasuke away with the wind roar, but like Sasuke nothing happened. What's going on? Ah, I see. Naruto watched the scene from afar. This is the day me and Sasuke truly understood what each other were going through with our magics. The pain we both felt through dysphoria and euphoria. Maybe, because debility sucks out the magic of the target and pulls it into the magic stores of the user to be broken down and destroyed. Because we were both pulling out each other's magic stores at the same time, that instead of our magic stores being broken down in each other's body, they filled the empty hole within them, effectively making us swap magic. Sasuke deduced. He smirked cockily once again. Let me test it, clone. 50 hard fists. Sasuke muttered. On cue, 50 bubbles of magic boiled from Sasuke's body, before transforming into full clones of the raven-haired boy. Interesting, they took my appearance. I was sure they would still look like you, no matter. Attack. Sasuke roared his order. The 50 clones began running towards Naruto, while the real Sasuke stood back, inhaling deeply. Furyu no Hoko. Shit, looks like I've got no choice. I've fought with Sasuke enough time to know his magic better than he does. Naruto frowned, slipping into a battle stance. Pressing the edges of his wrists together, he opened his hands like a bowl, spreading the fingers as far as possible. Fire make. Salamander cannon. An explosion of fire shot from his hands, enveloping the clones in flames. Engulfing the blast of wind, Sasuke fired at him, pushing it back towards Sasuke. Naruto watched as the fight faded further and further away, as if he was being pulled away from it. After the scenery from the fight left, so did the bright white light. What's going on? Naruto wondered in confusion as all the light faded from his world. All of Naruto's world was black. Looking around, there was absolutely nothing but a dark abyss. Another hallucination, he concluded quite easily, still waiting for something to happen. Out of the darkness a set of large eyes appeared. The eyes were a bright warm blue, glaring down at him with a look Naruto all too well. A scornful look, filled with fear and rejection and hate. He also recognized whose eyes they were as well. They were Mirajane's, the kind Mirajane who never judged anyone. her eyes bearing down on his back just like everyone else. More eyes appeared, filling the walls of the darkness with angry stares, circling him, trapping him, locking him in their cage of stares. Fixed upon him with hate. Naruto's chest heaved, his body flickering around on the spot, his eyes trying to meet every other set of eyes. Sweat rolled down his body. "I'm sorry," he muttered quietly. "I'm sorry," he then screamed at the top of his voice. He took off, running at his fastest. He could feel himself run, but the eyes followed him no matter which way he turned, never getting closer nor further. "I was only doing my duty as a mage, to protect the people," Naruto justified himself, shouting again at the eyes. "We don't care." Naruto recognized the voice, it was definitely Urza's. "You are a freak of nature, destined for darkness and evil." That voice was Myra's. "You're scum, you take away people's strength and power, yet you act like the victim, Natsu. You're just a monster, unwanted by us, unwanted by anyone." That voice was Makarov's, the man who saved him from the darkness. Naruto went into a panic as the voices all began talking at once, their harsh words cutting into as did their eyes. He had tried running, that had failed. "Stop!" he shouted once again, clutched his head, and closing his eyes to avoid everything coming at him. Stu-o-p-p-p-p-p. Light broke back into his vision, as did the feeling of hard, dried ground underneath his feet. With his chest heaving, Naruto dropped to his knees, sitting on his feet with his back arched forwards so his head hung loosely. He stared at the brown ground below him. Each hallucination sucked me of energy and willpower. I can't believe after everything I've been through, every obstacle I've had to overcome. It's heat that's going to kill me. Naruto looked up at the sun burning over him. He prayed for clouds to block it out. He prayed for rain to rejuvenate him. But something did come block the sun out, its enormous wings flapping overhead. A dragon? Naruto looked up in surprise. He recognized the shape of the massive creature, the strong build, the enormous wings and large tail flying behind it. He realized that the dragon was coming downwards. Suddenly it crashed down in front of him, kicking up a dust cloud with its descent. Naruto closed his eyes to focus his vision through the cloud. He heard the beast snarling. Two blood-red eyes gleamed through the cloud, and a large black-scaled hand slowly revealed itself out of the dust cloud, cracking the ground underneath its weight, large black claws digging into the ground. As the dust cloud left, Naruto found himself surprised. This beast was certainly larger than he had ever seen Cyclone. It stared at him with such malicious intent, fangs bearing towards him. A black dragon, huh? Naruto continued staring at the large black beast, and the beast continued to snarl and stare back. They remained like this, neither moved, battling their wills against each other through their eyes. "So what is it you want?" Naruto asked aloud, staring down the beast. "I want to give you a gift." The dragon responded. Stopping its snarling, it held its head higher in a more regal manner. It spotted Naruto's look of utter confusion, so the dragon continued. "I have seen a great destiny in you, one who bathes in both the light and the darkness. Naruto Uzumaki, your future is glorious. You will carve a new world out of the old, one with power, order and might. I see the dragons flying freely through the skies without restraint, and you sitting upon a throne of the world, being praised by everything. And how do you know it's me you're after?" Naruto replied skeptically, disbelieving of everything the dragon was saying. "I have had visions of you, ones that remained a mystery to me for so many years, but now I have found you." The dragon replied, seeing Naruto's look of skepticism. "Perhaps you need to see for yourself." The dragon moved its claw towards Naruto, touching him gently on the chest. A white flash ensued. Naruto's eyes widened. There he was, sat around a table with people he had never seen before, except for one. Gaara. Gaara was sat next to him. They were sat in an elegant white room and all of them were smiling, but the others' eyes were directed at Naruto, who was sat in the most grand of the chairs, as their leader. Naruto's eyes remained wide as the vision stopped. "Naruto, are your emotions at constant war with each other? Your conscience? Do you want to do good in this world, but it just appears that your powers bend your path towards the darkness?" The dragon asked, accepting Naruto's silence as a yes. "Then we are two of the same." Naruto continued thinking about the vision. He liked it. The appreciation on their faces, how they all seemed to be from different backgrounds, and all of them were brought together and happy. "How is that possible?" Naruto asked aloud. "How can I achieve that?" "Fantasia." The dragon replied. "A powerful magic that can fulfill the fantasies of the user, turning their fantasies into reality. You can create a world exactly how you want it, with peace, prosperity, equality and of course, a person to lead it all." "Okay." Naruto spoke optimistically. "I'll do it. I can create a new world, where fear and sadness have been wiped out. I can create a utopia. But you will never achieve it in this meager form." The dragon intervened, cutting Naruto off. You will need a power that only I can bestow upon you. Before I agree to anything you give me, I must know. Why me? Naruto asked. Suddenly the heat was no longer an issue with him. Your heart is buried deep within the darkness, yet it naturally shines with a bright light. The dragon replied. Only a person who has lived so deep in the darkness can pull the world out of it. Naruto only stared at the dragon, trying to figure out any downsides of the agreement. Perhaps a proper introduction is in order? The dragon suddenly continued. My name is Shikiden, Prince of the Dragons. My older brother is Jiragen, King of the Dragons. My brother has ordered that the dragons leave this world and let humans shape the future of it themselves. We dragons left our magic as tools for the humans to use, but I do not believe this is the best option. Humans are cruel and heartless, they will stab those closest to them in the back in order to get ahead. However, this is not all of them. Fine. I will do this. Naruto responded, waiting for the gift this dragon wanted to give. Very well, my brother and I are naturally both fire dragons, therefore I shall bestow on you the gift of fire. However, our true ability lies within strengthening the effects of other dragons' powers. Creating a whole new level of Dragon Slayer. While my brother imbues Dragon Slayer with the power of white light, creating White Dragon Slayer, I embed it with the deepest darkness, creating Dark Dragon Slayer. I knew I needed a Dragon Slayer in order to bring peace, and now I have found you. The dragon finished before breathing out a black flame. It was not naturally, looking more like the shadow of a flame than the actual flames. The flames spread across the panic-stricken Naruto, setting his body aflame. His screams of agony filled the air as he was consumed by the shadowy black flames. Don't worry, you will not be injured by the flames, and the pain will fade. The dragon smiled as he began to take off. But when you will awaken with a whole new level of power. Naruto continued to scream in pain, rolling around in agony as his body was aflame. Oh yes, this may cause some side effects, such as some repressed memories resurfacing. The dragon grinned evilly as it began taking off into the sky. One more thing, Naruto. The black beast bellowed loudly. People will stand in the way of your goals and actions. You must crush all opposition that rises against you. Naruto ran, and he ran fast, tears pouring down his face, yet he was smiling. Finally I'm free. He thought with excitement. Earlier that day he had slipped away from the Magic Council. Making his escape, he left a note to Uranai, apologizing, but informing him it was time he quit and left the council. Naruto sped through the woods surrounding the council, taking one last look back at the place he had been locked away in for 2 years. But that was in the past. He was looking towards the future, and he knew the place where he wanted to be. Fairy tale. It sounded so fun and exciting he had to go to it himself. Naruto suddenly felt himself colliding with someone, bouncing off them and falling to the floor. Ouch. Sorry. Naruto spoke quickly, rubbing the back of his head. Looking up to meet the person he bumped into, a man stared back down at him with black dilated pupils and red sclera made even darker by his pale white skin. A sick twisted grin on his face framed with shoulder-length wavy gray-silver hair. Dressed in a green shirt with tiger-like stripes at the bottom with blue pants with fur lined around the top half of them. Naruto panicked at the loom on the man's face. He looked as if he wanted to kill him. My name is Zero, boy. Do you know why? The man answered, the grin on his face increased. It's because no matter what I come across, I erase it from existence. Making it so it wasn't even there, even their bodies are destroyed. I reduce them to zero. The man screamed. Dark Capriccio. A horrible green blast of energy, wrapped in a spiral of red energy shot from the man's hand, drilling straight into Naruto and throwing him backwards. Your body is still here. The man reveled in his attack with a small blonde. Dark Delete. He threw his hands forwards. Spheres of the same dark energy fired continuously from his hands, bombarding Naruto in a never-ending wave of attacks. Stop! Naruto screamed in agony as the sphere of energy collided with his body, crushing him further and further into the ground. I said stop. Naruto screeched at the top of his voice. He wanted the pain to go away. He just wanted the man to go away. And the attack did stop. The man looked frozen in place, a bead of sweat rolling down his face. What is this? Zero thought, looking towards the boy. Dysphoria, I felt it for sure. He's manipulating my emotion of fear to stop me from attacking. But then, his train of thought was suddenly cut off. No, not now. I just got back out. Naruto heard the man scream, grasping his head. He yelled in protest, trying to stop whatever was happening. He suddenly stopped moving, his head hanging low, his face covered by his hair. His heads went through his hair, pulling his head up and pushing his hair back to a sleek, neat pulled-back style. His eyes had lost their red, ominous glow, turning to a normal white. Even his skin had changed from a pale white to tanned brown. You boy, you possess one of the branches of the lost magic Nirvana. You are in a way like Nirvana yourself. You can fall into the darkness or bathe in the light. This new man spoke with an apathetic, yet interested voice. And you have already shown a remarkable strength, to be able to use your magic to momentarily cease the movements of my other personality, allowing me to regain control over my body. One day you will be a powerful ally, or a worthy opponent. The man began walking towards Naruto, who in a fit of panic tried to escape, but his body was just too weakened after the assault that he could only shuffle slowly across the floor. The man stopped in front of Naruto, placing the tips of his 3 fingers on Naruto's forehead. I am going to put a spell on you, making you forget this encounter, repressing it in the darkest depths of your mind. I shall unlock it on the day I find you to collect your power. The tips of his fingers flashed a light of bright green. Naruto's eyes flew wide open, his body freezing on the spot. Unfortunately, I must use some of your memory cells in order to repress this memory, so you may randomly forget other memories as well, although I can't put any detail onto which ones. The man said, letting go of Naruto's forehead. Naruto dropped to the floor in a slumber, battered and bruised. I shall keep a close eye on you. The man turned, ready to leave. As he walked he placed a hand on his forehead. I must hurry. His escapes are becoming more and more common, with less intervals of time in between. I must lock him away forever. Hey, Itachi. Naruto asked whilst throwing some more decorations on a float he and Itachi had been working on for the upcoming Fantasia Harvest Festival. What is the Fantasia Festival about? And why is it so significant to Fairy Tail that we take part in it every year? It's kind of a long story, but I suppose we have some time. Itachi chuckled as he placed a few more flowers on the edge of the float. According to legend, Fantasia is the world where the fairies live. It's a peaceful, prosperous place where fantasy becomes reality, deepest desire become fulfilled and dreams come true. So the Harvest Festival was named after this wondrous place in hopes that some of its good luck will fall on the harvest and produce quality quantitative crops. Itachi explained to Naruto. And its significance to Fairy Tail, apparently every fairy born is blessed with a small portion of that power. The power embedded in their tails. So Fairy Tail always participate in the festival in hopes of boosting the chances of better crops being grown. Kind of silly when you think about it, but it's the thought and the sentiment that counts. Plus, there always seems to be a very healthy crop each year. Itachi smiled, laughing at the small irony. Perhaps their involvement did actually make a difference to the crops. Wow, imagine that. The power to make fantasy a reality. The things you could do. Naruto imagined what he would do if he had that power. Find Cyclone in an instant, turn back time so the council never found him, bring peace to the world. Well, another rumor is that Fantasia has also manifested as a magic in our world as well, locked away somewhere secret, waiting for the right person to wield it properly. Itachi informed him, smiling down at the blonde. Naruto smiled back at the older raven-haired boy. You know what, Itachi? I think that if anyone could wield Fantasia, it would be you. You are far too kind, Naruto-kun. Fantasia would need a perfect person to wield it, and I am certainly not a perfect person. Itachi replied with honestly. He knew his strengths and his weaknesses and his faults. No, it's true. You have got a kind, gentle soul, Itachi. Plus you're really strong and smart, everybody likes you, and I've never seen you ever do anything bad. I think if you wanted to bring peace to this world, you could do it, Itachi. Naruto protested, smiling up at Itachi again. Naruto scanned through the books of the library. This was Fiore's famous library. He had come with Makarov because Makarov had asked for his help in looking for a book somewhere in here. As he was looking, Naruto also quickly flicked through whatever books interested him. He reached a new shelf on one of the bookcases. Naruto's lower lip jutted out at the name of the first book on the shelf. A History of Famous Faces X 778. Naruto picked it up and opened it. It was a book detailing historical figures throughout the world. It appeared this book was updated annually, listing famous people now deceased and adding them to the list. He read down the contents page, which listed when the alphabet changed letter on these people. N. Naruto picked the first letter that came to mind. Finding where N started, he flicked to the page. Instantly he was gobsmacked. Minato Namikaze, aka the Yellow Flash. Age 26. Date of death. X 766. Naruto looked at the headshot of the man smiling, with deep blue eyes and a head of spiky blonde hair, with long bangs framing his face. Looks a lot like me. Master. Naruto called, running down the aisles to find the old man, the book being held under his arm. He eventually found the man scanning an entire bookcase for the one single book. Master. He called again, gaining his attention. Opening the book at the page the blonde man was on, he showed it to Makarov. Do you know who this guy is? Quite frankly, I'm surprised you haven't heard of him through the council, Naruto. Makarov's face matched the surprise in his voice. Minato Namikaze once worked for the Magic Council, but after some event he began to rebel against the council's barbarism and method of maintaining order and peace. He never spoke of what he saw, but it must have been bad in order for such a loyal person like him to abandon them. He probably saw the same things you have seen. Anyway, eventually he began to rebel against everything, the council, how guilds were set out, how they were divided and rivaling against each other for stronger mages, higher paying jobs and all that stuff. He soon became a revolutionary, his spirit and charisma enlightening the people and setting their own spirits ablaze. Minato attempted to start anew and rebuild the world of mages with a new method of establishing peace, order and equality in the world. He was also one of the nicest of people you could have ever met. You met him, master? Naruto hung on every word. This Minato did all that to the council, and he never even heard a peep about the name. I did. Very smart boy, that one. Always friendly and helpful, but an incredible tactician and fierce warrior. Makarov answered, remembering the blonde man often dubbed as a hero. He was the first person to ever doubt the council's authoritative ability, believing that they weren't equipped to govern all the mages, that a group of 10 people couldn't speak for 10% of the world's population. And what happened to him? Naruto asked in interest. Surely if he was as strong as Makarov made him out to be, he wouldn't have died so young. Naturally he faced opposition, Makarov mused, trying to remember the details. Both he and his newly wedded wife were found in a makeshift grave in a forest. They had been killed by the 7 princes of hell from the dark guild Tartaros according to the council. The same guild that killed Itachi. Naruto cursed in a mumble under his breath. Tartaros, they had done so much wrong to the world, filling it with hate and pain and suffering, but their leaders had been lost 2 years ago, so they would have took a serious drop in their level of strength. Exactly. Didn't help the Magic Council's case either. Massive speculations and rumors went around about their involvement in the death of Minato. People believed they had paid Tartaros to assassinate him. The 7 princes of hell were the only ones willing to fight him. It eventually led to mass, yet smaller than Minato's, rebellions all around the world. Including the one going on in Rubengard now, the one being led by Sanjao Shin. Makarov informed the blonde boy. So why does no one speak of him, like no one speaks of Itachi? Why do the heroes only get remembered in writing, while whispers of the treachery of villains slips off the tongues of the public easily? Naruto asked confused. There were always whispers of Tartaros, Ivan and Grimoire Heart. Everywhere they went, but no one spoke of the good people who fought against them. Because it's harder to speak about the heroes. Makarov spoke with a small smile on his face. Heroes are people who inspire us, give us that drive, they have that look that makes you want to put your faith into them. And when that is taken away so cruelly, it leaves a gap in your heart. I see. Naruto looked down at the picture of Minato. It made sense. No one spoke about Itachi, not out of disrespect, but because he was taken away from them so early. You know what? Makarov was looking over his shoulder. Aside from the shape of the eyes, you and Minato look a lot alike. I wonder if there's a connection between you two somewhere. Makarov noted, looking at the book then towards Naruto with a weird expression. Naruto laughed, grinning whilst displaying both sets of pearly white teeth. Makarov himself smiled and laughed. Yep, I knew I had seen that grin somewhere before. He remembered the yellow flash performing the same one all those years ago. See, we should do this more often, Sasuke. Naruto said to the raven-haired boy sat next to him. They both sat on the side of a hill. The sun was setting on what had been a pleasant day. You said that this truce would only last for today. No fighting at all, hanging out as if we are friends. Sasuke replied, it was true. Sasuke and Naruto had met up for their routine fight. But Naruto had suggested that they have a one-day truce, without fighting, playing as if they were not on opposing sides, acting as if they were not mages rivaling in strength, they were just friends. We are friends, Sasuke. I promised Itachi we would be. Naruto replied with a small smile. Naruto didn't want to say it, but it was more than just friends. He felt a brotherly bond with Sasuke, as if they were brothers in blood. He could tell Sasuke felt the same, from the way he relaxed his stance. But Sasuke would never say it aloud. Sasuke had only one brother. At the mention of his big brother's name, Sasuke's gaze hardened. I'm afraid I may have to cancel our next meeting, Sasuke commented, looking out at the sunset. The Magic Council has picked up a lead concerning Tartaros, and I volunteered to be the one to chase it up. If it is them, then one of the 2 guilds responsible for Itachi's death will be destroyed. I don't need a warranty off the council to take down Tartaros. I can't, it's been 7 years since Itachi died, if he could see us now. Naruto mused, what would Itachi think of him, of Sasuke, of the world they lived in? Hey, did I ever tell you the story Itachi told me? Naruto looked over to Sasuke, whose eyebrow rose, indicating that he did not. He told me about Fantasia. A place where fantasies become reality, a peaceful, prosperous world. A living utopia. Apparently the magic of Fantasia is locked away somewhere in this world, waiting for the right person to wield it. Fantasia. Sasuke looked out to the sunset again. If anyone could have brought a world like that, it would have been Itachi. But he is dead, and this world is unfixable. Naruto looked towards Sasuke with a small smile, before sighing as he stood up, staring off into the sunset, before he extended his hand towards Sasuke, looking towards him with a wide grin. We'll make a world like that in his place. Sasuke chuckled to himself quietly, shaking his head lightly. Fantasia, he muttered loud enough for Naruto to hear. Before looking towards Naruto, a smile on his own face. I'd like to see a world like that. His hand shot up, grasping Naruto's. Naruto pulled him up, and together they stared as the sun set on this day of peace. Both silently hoping that there would be many to follow. Naruto felt the soft feel of grass under him, his eyes fluttered open. As he sat up, he found himself in a new location. It was a lush green field. Now where am I? Naruto grumbled in his head as he stood up. The grass still reached up to his knee. Looking around, the area was empty except for the hilly scenery, the wind visibly blowing through the grass. Naruto looked around in every direction, looking for some sort of clue in which direction he should head. And he found one. Not far was a small cottage nestled on the top of the hill, plain white outer walls and a wooden door, with a small brown picket fence going around it. Confused, Naruto walked towards it, pushing his way through the long thick grass until he reached the fence. Stepping over it, the grass had now been cut low. He made his way to the door. He knocked but no one answered. Feeling it was okay to enter, Naruto did, opening the door slowly and walking in. He was instantly met with 3 people sat around a table with a 4th chair free. Naruto's face only displayed the utmost shock. At this table sat Itachi Uchiha, the rebel revolutionary Minato Namikaze, and a woman who had a surprisingly warm smile to her. Her hair was a stark red and very long, pooling on the floor whilst she was sat down. The woman stood up instantly with a gasp. She hurried over to him, her arms wrapping around him. Finally, she spoke cheerfully, but also tearfully. Letting go of him a little, she smiled at him, looking him straight in the eyes. I get to meet you properly, although I wish it was under different circumstances. Naruto looked at the woman skeptically, then to the blonde Minato and then over to Itachi, both of whom had small smiles on their faces. Am I dead? I mean, Itachi's dead, you're dead. He pointed over to Minato, before he looked back over to the woman. Looking at her red hair. I've seen your hair before, only for the briefest of moments. But if you are who I think you are, then you are dead as well. I am who you think I am. The woman spoke, a tear rolling down her face. The name's Kushina Namikaze, but you can call me Mom. She laughed loudly, hugging Naruto again. Naruto hugged her slightly in return, but his focus diverted to Minato still sat at the table. So what is the yellow flash, the revolutionary Minato Namikaze, doing here? Those are a few of my names, but there is one more you can call me by. Minato stood up, walking over to Naruto as Kushina moved out the way, allowing the 2 blondes to stand face to face. Minato's hand rested on Naruto's shoulder. He smiled a warm smile as he patted Naruto's shoulder. You can also call me Dad. You're my father. My real father? Naruto asked in surprise. I knew I wasn't really a dragon, he mumbled under his breath. Naruto Uzumaki, Cyclone picked a beautiful name for you. Kushina spoke again, a smile on her face. Much better than the name we picked anyway. Itachi coughed, gaining the attention of the family. I apologize for disrupting this reunion, but we need to inform Naruto on his current situation. He gestured for all 3 of them to sit. Naruto, your father and I have been watching you your entire life, even though we couldn't be a part of it. We are proud of you, Naruto, no matter what your past was filled with. Kushina whispered as she and Naruto made their ways to the seats. So, I'll ask again. Am I dead? Naruto asked as soon as he had sat down. You're kind of in between, not quite alive, not quite dead. You're on the edge, you can go either way. And we are here to help ease your passing over if you should move in the direction of death. Minato explained rather simply, not beating around the bush. Okay, so why is it you 3? The 3 people closest to me? Naruto asked. He wasn't complaining, but he just wanted to know. Well yes, but there is something else that we 3 share in common, Itachi answered for the 3 of them. The Dark Guild and people responsible for our deaths. Tartaros and the 7 princes of hell, so it's true. He looked more directly at Minato. Makarov had told me the rumor you had been killed by the 7 princes of hell. Minato nodded affirmatively. It's true. Both Kushina and I died by the 7 princes of Hell's hand. They approached me with an offer of joining them or facing annihilation. You can probably guess what my answer was. So how am I alive? Naruto asked. How did I survive your confrontation with Tartaros? I saw it in a hallucination. I was with you when you both died. That was my doing. Kushina replied. I placed a magic barrier around you imbued with mine and Minato's magical power. It took a lot out of use to generate it. It protected you completely from harm. It was indestructible until it faded. Lucifer could do nothing at that time, so he and the other princes left to let the wilderness kill you. But you were found by Cyclone. Tartaros, Naruto's fists clenched in absolute anger. This has gone on too far. The amount of pain and suffering they caused the world. I wish I could have stopped them, stopped all the dark guilds. I wish I could have done something. As if waiting for his words, a light appeared around Naruto, the sight lighting up Minato and Kushina's faces. Looks like you can still get your wish. Minato spoke happily, a content smile on his face. Naruto, I want to thank you. For keeping your promise, you became a friend to Sasuke. Itachi smiled as well. One day Sasuke will come to his senses. I do not blame Fairy Tail for anything. And one day Sasuke and I shall meet again. Naruto. I saw what the council has put you through. They're barbaric and corrupt, aren't they? But how you stood up to them. You perform the tasks out of a duty to the world, not for them. I've seen the times when you have refused to use your Magi Magni Metis for their purposes. And you have always refused their payment. I am proud of that the most. You have the correct morals. You may just be able to do something to help the world and free it from their clutches. Minato said with a smile at Naruto, placing one of his arms around Kushina's waist. Naruto smiled at all 3 of them in return. As the light began getting brighter, he heard Kushina call out one last time. Remember Naruto, no matter what you do, we are always proud of you. Hey, wake up. Naruto heard someone calling him. He opened his eyes tiredly. Over his head was a man with blue hair. Fringe pulled up to a faux hawk. He had small circular eyes with 3 boomerang-shaped tattoos under each eye on the cheekbone. His mouth was slightly open, revealing a set of shark-like teeth. Where am I? Naruto groaned out. He tried to sit up but stumbled. The man helped him to sit up, before moving across the room. Naruto looked around. It was just a small hut, probably a tent that this man had set up to escape the sun. Drink this. The man had produced a tray filled with cups of water, offering all of them to Naruto, who took them quickly, downing the contents of each cup as quickly as he could. You were unconscious in the middle of the wasteland. Bad time to be traveling through it at this time of year. I found you and brought you here, just at the borderline of Bosco and 7. Thank you. Naruto nodded to the man for giving him the water, before he looked down. My clothes have been changed. He pointed out. Gone were his cape, shirt and black pants. He now wore white pants with a black band around his waist. Over his upper body was a white, sleeveless cloak of sorts, hanging loosely all around him. Yeah, I don't know what happened to you out there, but your clothes had been pretty burned up badly. It's a wonder you don't actually have a burns yourself. The man replied, looking outside for a moment, allowing Naruto to see that it was now night time. Those were all I had that would possibly fit you. The man continued as he walked back in. I don't have burns, are you sure? Naruto asked, feeling his face for signs of scarring. The man moved over to his bag, pulling out a mirror. See for yourself. He handed the mirror to Naruto, who took it to see his face. My hair. Naruto spoke in confusion. Through his hair small streaks of black now run through. Everything else had remained the same. Though I wonder what else is new about me. Name's Kisame Hoshigaki, by the way. The man introduced himself quickly. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto replied with a quick nod. So tell me Naruto, what were you trying to do all the way out here? Kisame asking, leaning against his bag at the side of the tent. Trying to accomplish my goal. Naruto responded, placing the mirror down. And what is your goal? Kisame grinned, his shark-like teeth making a full appearance as he probed further and further. Naruto's eyes opened, his brow furrowed. His body tensed up and his fists clenched hard. He had only one goal in mind, one single accomplishment he needed to achieve. To destroy the Dark Guild Tartaros. You are going to destroy Tartaros? Kisame responded with an amused chuckle. And just what are your plans in achieving that? Tartaros is perhaps the strongest Dark Guild on the continent, or was until the demise of the 7 Princes of Hell. If you did manage to accomplish such a feat, what could you possibly do to follow it up? Once I rid the world of Tartaros, I will focus on my most important goal. Creating a Fantasia. I will turn this world into a utopia for everyone. Naruto replied bluntly, his eyes half open. Emotion seemed drained of his body. He assumed it would be because of whatever happened to him in the wasteland that was still affecting him. Kisame grinned widely, his eyebrow cocking up in interest. Fantasia? Utopia? These are some bold claims. In order to create them you would need to create a world without lies or deceit, otherwise you'd just be creating the biggest lie ever. Then that's what I'll do. Naruto replied without hesitation. Lies, deceit, pain, suffering, sadness, hopelessness. I will eradicate all of them from the world, leaving nothing but joy, happiness and peace. Kisame laughed softly, almost unheard to Naruto. Then I will help you. I have lived a life of lies. My first guild, the guild I grew up in, was selling information about other guilds to dark guilds, including Tartaros. My best friend and I destroyed our guild and killed our guild master. It made me wonder about myself. Was I free to call myself anything other than a dark mage after committing the act? I want to live in a world without lies, with nothing but the truth. And that is what my Fantasia will offer. Naruto responded with a smile. The first thing we will need to do is locate Tartaros. That's easy. Tartaros operate in the Black Kingdom in the country of Hoya, otherwise known as the mountain-guarded country. Kisame grinned, taking a map out of his back and opening it, pointing to the country southeast from where they were. The country of Hoya was small, literally guarded by a wall of mountains going around its border. Tartaros has been situated there for decades. The first thing you will need to do is to collect manpower in order to take down Tartaros and its members. That's the real task. Yes, we'll need mages with no other ties to anything, no guilds, no families. Mages free to travel the world without restraint. A smirk suddenly grew on Naruto's face. I know someone who we should try to recruit, though they may be hard to find. At least let me carry my own bag. Naruto extended his hand towards Kisame, who had sealed away most of the equipment he had into a scroll, which he put into his own bag. On his back were both his and Naruto's bag. I don't want to take any chances. I don't want you to carry any unnecessary weight, even something as small as a bag. You could still be weak from earlier. I don't know how long you were passed out in the wasteland for. Kisame replied with a shark-like grin. Naruto tutted loudly in annoyance. He felt useless. He liked to carry his own weight. So tell me, where are we going? He asked curiously. They had been walking east for some time, their camp spot slowly moving into the distance behind them. We're heading east, through Bosco. We'll cross into Illa in a couple of days. From there Hoya will be directly south from us. Kisame replied, still continuing to grin madly. But what happened to recruit members before we enter Hoya and the Black Kingdom? Naruto asked curiously, his eyebrow cocked upwards with a small smirk of his own presented on his face. You saw the map. Hoya is basically like a giant bar of land, cutting of the dark lake from the sea. I suggest we travel right around the lake, going from Illa, into Reberg, east to Bellum, south into Desierta, then straight into the southern side of Hoya or stopping in minutes first. We're bound to find a good few mages on the way around. Kisame replied, looking straight east towards their objectives. Sounds good. It will give us plenty of time to prepare, come to understand our group members together and formulate battle strategies that complement each other's strengths well. Naruto nodded in agreement. Although I want a select team of about 7 to 10 members, so the quicker we find those members the better, I'd rather we rid the world of Tartaros quickly. Whatever works. Although I wouldn't say we should destroy Tartaros entirely. Kisame mused, thinking of all the possibilities or ways around Naruto's plan. What do you mean? Naruto frowned darkly, irritation present in his tone. He would destroy Tartaros no matter what. Nothing anyone could say would deter him from this path. Something for another time perhaps. Look ahead. Kisame grinned, nodding his head forwards, gesturing for Naruto's eyes to follow. Naruto looked to where Kisame had nodded to. A small, albeit glamorous town lied ahead. Despite the light of the bright sun bearing down from above, strong neon lights flickered on, a whole variety of colors. However, the buildings themselves looked shabby. Some with smashed windows covered by wood, some with the outer painting being cracked. Some with walls having holes in them. What is this place? Naruto asked from a distance. They stood hundreds of meters away from the small town, yet everything could be seen clearly. It is the town of Lorinoms, also known as the town with no morals. A crude, criminal town filled with thieves, thugs and villains, as well as a few other sort of people, including traffickers and dealers. Kisame responded, seemingly amused at the town ahead. Naruto nodded in understanding, his face turning apathetic when his eyes laid on the small town. Then we move around the town. I'd rather not associate myself with entering such a sick little town. That may not be the best idea. Kisame chuckled again, flashing his sharp teeth. I sense a very powerful magical aura resonating from that town. It might be worth checking it out. After all, you want to collect your members as fast as possible, right? You're a censor? Naruto's blonde eyebrow rose again, staring skeptically at the blue-haired man next to him. One of my magics, Ampullae of Lorenzini. It allows me to sense even the smallest electromagnetic field from even the smallest movement of muscle from anything, any person, any animal. In a mage's case, it also allows me to sense their magical aura, and determine how powerful it is. It's very useful, seeing as nothing can sneak up on me. Kisame grinned madly still. He enjoyed the powers his magic bestowed on him. Interesting, it seems you're the perfect person for scouting for the members of my team. Naruto smirked at the blue-haired man, before turning to the town of Lorenoms. And you're sure there is a powerful magical aura up ahead? Kisame nodded affirmatively. Definitely, not as strong as yours or my own, but strong than what is considered strong usually. Could be worth checking out, don't you think? Naruto sighed loudly, taking a deep breath in afterwards. Fine. We'll check it out. But let's be quick, I'd rather not get caught in the middle of anything. Naruto responded, his eyes focusing dead ahead onto the town. This mage had better be worth it. Naruto's face crumpled up in disgust as he stared at the building in front of him. La bomb bomb. Loud music with a strong bass could be heard playing within. The building was roughly 5 stories tall, larger than the average building in this town. And you're sure this powerful magical aura is being emitted from this place? Naruto turned to the larger blue-haired man behind him, silently hoping that that wasn't the case and Kisame had made some small mistake. I assure you that it is. I never make a mistake like this. Kisame responded back with his usually shark-like grin plastered across his face. Naruto sighed loudly again, looking hesitantly at the door. I can't believe this. He muttered quietly under his breath, opening the door slowly, stepping cautiously into the building. Instantly sleaze, scandal and sin overwhelmed his sense. The air was thick, heavy and musky from smoke. Loud, deep bass music battered against his ears. He looked around, vertical poles attached on the stage, with nearly naked women dancing on them. Men and other women sat in large chairs around the stage, smoking and drinking and laughing whilst watching the dancers. It was sickening. Just hurry up and point this mage out so we can get out of here, Naruto shouted loudly to the blue-haired man, unsure if Kisame would have heard him over the loud music had he not. The lights suddenly dimmed, the current dancers vacating the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for one of our star performers to come to the stage. So a round of applause for Kami no Tenshi. A voice resounded over a speakerphone. One single spotlight appeared on the stage. As the applause filled his ears, a woman came onto the stage in high blue heels and tight black pants. Her blue shirt had an angle cut out at the front revealing her stomach and 4 navel piercings, one on each side of her navel. The shirt was also completely sleeveless, staying on by the tight collar around her neck. Another cut went down the front of her shirt, her cleavage being presented to the world. There was also a floral design in a lighter blue on the front of the shirt. Her eyes were a deep amber shade. Her lips had a faint red color to them with another piercing in the center of her lower lip. Finally her blue hair was long, reaching down to the small on her back. She began a provocative dance routine around the pole. Bending over against it and twirling around it were just some of her moves. She's the one. That is who the magical aura is coming from. Kisame grinned constantly, turning towards the bar to order a drink. Are you serious? Naruto turned to Kisame, who continued to grin and nod in response. Naruto sighed loudly again in annoyance. How are we supposed to get some private time with her in order to convince her to join us? I think there is your answer. Naruto turned to Kisame's voice. Kisame was pointing to a small poster at the end of the bar. It was an advertisement. Customers could book a private session with any dancer of their choosing. The session would take place in one of the rooms above the bar, and everything on the dancer would be available to the individual customer. Naruto smirked at the poster. Kisame, you wait here. I'll speak to her. Naruto called to the blue-haired man, who nodded in return, already chugging down his second drink. Naruto himself moved over to the bartender, who was currently stood doing nothing. Every person's attention seemed to go on the one single dancer. Excuse me, Naruto got the bartender's attention. How'd I get a private session with Kami no Tenshi? She's very popular, sir. The bartender replied with a cheery tone and smile. You pay your 5,000 J now, and your name is put onto a record sheet. We then organize her customers for the day so everyone gets some time. You could be the first, 5th, or her last customer for the day. Naruto smirked again. He quickly grabbed his bag of Kisame. Moving back over to the bartender, opening his bag he went straight for the bundles of money, notes of jewels wrapped together by an elastic band. He slapped 4 wads of jewels on the table in front of the bartender, who seemed to drool at the cash. 20 feet 000 J, make me first on that list. Naruto smiled. The bartender nodded his head hypnotically, almost like a zombie. His eyes never leaving the stack of money. Naruto sat comfortably in a large chair in an elegant room. The bartender had kept his word. A barmaid approached him, saying that he was called first for his session with Kami no Tenshi and led him up to one of the rooms on the top floor. Naruto sat in the middle of the red, which was painted different shades of red, even the carpet and ceiling, even the windows were tinted red. Streaks of gold ran throughout the room as well, on the curtains and furniture, even on the bed cover on the bed behind him. The door in front of him suddenly creaked open, revealing the dancer from earlier. Her eyes went wide with a mild surprise when she saw who was her first customer. A boy with deep, ocean blue eyes and blonde hair, tinted with streaks of black. He was dressed completely in white, including baggy white pants and a sleeveless white cloak, which hung open loosely off his body. He wore nothing underneath, revealing his lean, muscular body. Well, this is a surprise. Boys my own age usually don't need a place like this, they can get girls easily enough by themselves. Most of my visitors are usually around 3 times my age. The blue-haired girl spoke in a polite, calm voice, a small smile present on her face as she slowly closed the door behind her. And how old are you? Naruto replied quickly, settling more comfortably into the chair. His eyes darted around the room. In the top right-hand corner of the room, just above the door was a viewing lacrima, probably to make sure the employees were doing their job. The girl looked to him with an eyebrow raised, as if surprised Naruto had asked her the question. 18. The same age as me then. Naruto replied with a smile himself. So what is your name? The girl put a smirk on her face, setting up some last-minute decor and drawing the curtains before she began. Naruto watched her move around the room while he sat still in the chair. Naruto Uzumaki, and what is your name? You know my name? The blue-haired girl smirked over her shoulder, slowly pulling her shirt down. How about your real name? Naruto responded in an apathetic tone. She moved to him and sat on his lap with her back face him, beginning a dance routine focused around him. She suddenly stopped, looking to Naruto when he asked the question, looking at him in surprise. My name is Conan. Conan Aim. She began dancing again, her long blue hair flicking him in the face. He pushed it out the way in annoyance, revealing a very interesting tattoo on her back. It was shaped like angels' wings over her shoulder blades, but the wings were decrepit and rotten, missing feathers, or the feathers were broken. The wings looked ugly, something that one would not usually associate with angels. That's an interesting tattoo. Conan spun around on his lap, facing him directly now. Her legs dangled over each side of the chair. She began grinding her body into Naruto's. She put her head over his shoulder. It's not a tattoo, she whispered quietly, sparking Naruto's interest at how secretive she was being. It is a seal. The Grim Angel Reaper seal. If I try to use magic, it will kill me. If I try to leave the building, it will paralyze my body. Us dancers have to live in the accommodation above the bar, where we become nothing but toys for their customers. Naruto stared at the blue-haired girl with silent shock. Conan. Enough. You talk too much, just like the rest of my customers, but unlike them you don't let me do my job. So just shut up and let me get on with this. Conan replied. Stepping off Naruto's lap, she began to pull down her tight black pants, kicking off her heeled shoes first. Fine, if you want to talk about work, then I have a business proposition for you. Naruto smiled in return, smiling wider when he heard Conan's huff of annoyance and frustration. Conan looked to him with slight anger. Nothing you say will be any different from anything else I have been offered in the past. I have heard it all before from the people who have come here in the past. Money, modeling, a better career. I've heard it all before. She was cut off. In a split second Naruto was in front of her, his body and forehead pressed against hers. His eyes were wide, completely serious. Conan's own eyes went wide with shock as well. I can offer you freedom. Naruto exited the private room in silence. Conan followed behind him with a giddy smile on her face. Calm yourself. Naruto didn't even turn to speak to her, he could feel the giddy anticipation radiating from her. Unless you wish to see the plan fail. I'm sorry. Conan responded, schooling her face out of the smile. No one had ever offered her freedom before. She was always offered into another form of service, but never this before. She could tell that this blonde boy was different. Are you able to accomplish your task? It is a lot to ask, and I wouldn't see you exposed to any further unnecessary danger. Naruto looked over his shoulder to speak to her, his ocean blue eyes locking with her stark amber ones. Yes, the source of the magic barriers are within the manager's chambers. Luckily I have been in there countless times. I am, after all, one of his personal favorites. A smirk formed on her face as she responded. Good, then our plan begins immediately as the night comes. Stick to the plan, and follow it effectively, and you shall receive that which you seek. Naruto began walking towards the stairs, beginning his descent down them, not looking back to the blue-haired girl. He remained completely unaware of her stare, which fixated on his back to the point of a borderline fanatical worship of him. Naruto reaching the bottom of the stairs, passing few others who were ascending them, probably going for the same services he had paid so much for in order to contact Conan directly. His eyes scanned the club, looking for his other blue-haired associate. He found Kisame, surrounded by a crowd of onlookers, each staring at him in fascination. 3 people sat at the other end of the table, with countless cups of drink in the center of them. Kisame picked up one cup, downing its contents quickly before continuing to the next, not even fazed by the alcohol, grinning madly as each cup neared his lips. His opponents were a different story, each one unable to sit still, each close to vomiting. Kisame. Naruto called over the crowd, grasping the man's attention as his 3 opponents suddenly passed out on the table, unable to continue their competition. We're leaving. Fine. Beating 19 people consecutively in a drinking competition was getting boring anyway. The large man responded as he rose from his seat, catching up to the shorter blonde. So, did you talk to the girl? He asked the blonde, who replied with a nod. I will brief you once we are away from the club and its prying ears. Naruto responded, his eyes darting over to the bouncers, who stared at the two of them with suspicion. Conan has been set to purpose. She knows what her task is in order to aid her freedom. Now all that we must decide is how to dispose of all the bouncers and the manager himself in La Bomb Bomb. We need a plan of attack if we are going to free Conan. Naruto spoke to Kisame, having left the club for now some buildings behind. They walked casually towards a small oasis in the barren wasteland of the country of Bosco. This oasis, filled with lush green trees and grass, was used as a public park, a place of peace and rest. I've always been one for the charging in head first and eliminate quickly plan. And in a place like this, with our superior magic, it is the most appropriate strategy that will yield the best results. Kisame responded with a shark-like grin plastered across his face. It won't be that simple. A dull, unknown voice rang out as they walked past a tree. Yes, the bouncers have no magic whatsoever, but the manager does. He has created numerous barriers in the club that react when any form of magic other than his own is detected being released. These barriers are dangerous. You should proceed with more caution than charging in with such a dull tactic. We already have someone on the inside attending to the matter of bringing down the barriers, or at least reprogramming them to not detect our magic. We can deal with that problem ourselves. Now reveal yourself. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he stared at the tree. He could sense someone behind the wood. And he was right. A man stepped out from behind the tree. He was a dark-skinned man, with dull, heavy-lidded eyes and shaggy white hair covering his left eye from view. The man wore a high-collared, sleeveless black uniform with loose-fitting pants, bandages on his wrists and the one strap over one shoulder flak jacket. On his left shoulder was a tattooed symbol for lightning, while on his right shoulder was a tattooed symbol for water. The man's visible features, even his stance, indicated he was a relaxed, mellow man. I'm sorry, I had forgotten my manners. My name is Darui, and I believe I can help with your dilemma with La Bomb Bomb. And why would you want to help us? 2 strangers? Naruto asked quizzically, his eyes narrowing further as he stared speculatively at the man named Darui. Darui's fist tensed quickly, the bones clicking, his mellow appearance changed slightly to one of rage. That club. That manager. He kidnapped my sister and put her in that place. She was unable to cope with what she was forced to do in that place, and eventually she took her own life. I have waited for a chance to avenge her, and now I believe my chance has finally appeared. Naruto continued staring at the man only in silence before Kisame moved closer to the young blonde. I can sense a great magical power from him, Naruto. Perhaps even on par with yours and my own. He could be a valuable asset, especially considering his uniform. Kisame whispered to Naruto, grinning madly as he did so. His uniform? Naruto's eyebrow rose in confusion as he stared at the man's attire. What about it? That is the uniform of the security guards of the Abyss Brink prison, the largest, maximum security prison on the continent, housing only the most despicable of men. Kisame responded with a chuckle, his grin growing slightly larger. Naruto himself smirked at the knowledge. Interesting, he muttered to himself, before speaking up. Very well, Darui, you can aid us, he confirmed the man, who smiled in return. Thanks. When do we begin? Darui responded with a slightly happier tone mixing into his dull voice. When the night comes. Naruto turning quickly only the spot and began walking away. It would be several hours until their plan began. And he needed to prepare. There were aspects of himself he was now unsure of and needed reaffirmation. And the night came. Darker than usual, yet the club was still lit up brightly. Naruto, Kisame and Darui stood in front of the building, staring with intent at it. We shall begin. Naruto spoke. A large grin grew on Kisame's face at the instruction. Darui moved in front of the two of them. I'll go first. He spoke, clasping his hands together in front of him. Black Lightning Panther. He shouted. From his hands came lightning, black in color and shaped like a panther. It was launched towards the building and within seconds made contact with the front, blowing away the front wall. You're a lightning mage. Naruto spoke with surprise, looking at the devastation the one attack had caused. Already people began fleeing the building, and bouncers came out, looking at the three of them, cracking their knuckles. I am more than lightning mage. Darui replied with a smile. But it appears your associate on the inside was successful with bringing down the barriers. I tried once before to attack from the outside, but a barrier deflected my attack. You two deal with the bouncers, I'll move towards the manager. Naruto ordered, rushing forwards and with seconds, jumped over the wall of bouncers before they had a chance to react. Darui and Kisame soon followed, meeting the bouncers quickly and delivering powerful strikes to them. Naruto didn't look back as he entered the club, the bouncers too preoccupied with Darui and Kisame to come after him. Naruto stood within the club. Time to get rid of this sin. He spoke, his eyes closing tightly. Now it was time to try out his new abilities. Meikaryu no Hoko. He roared, fire erupted from his mouth, yet it was a fire he had never seen before. It was more like the shadows of flames, they were deep black in color. And their heat was intense, they quickly engulfed the furniture and bottom floor in dark flames. Naruto continued onwards, going up the stairs and towards the manager's office. It was a grand door, lined with a golden frame on the top floor. As he approached the door he was met by someone outside. He smirked at their presence. You were successful, Conan. Indeed. The blue-haired girl smirked in return, allowing Naruto to walk towards her before she too turned to face the door. Now let's meet the manager. Naruto smirked. Before he kicked the door open, the man jumped out of his seat with shock and horror. Before he could do anything Naruto made his attack. Mei Furyu no Sarudoi Bai. He quickly slashed his hand in front of him, and the usual crescent-shaped blade of wind had morphed as well. The wind was now similarly black in color. It was a dark wind. The crescent-shaped had changed with more blades of wind jutting from the primary one. It quickly connected with the manager, blowing him back against a wall. He grunt of pain echoed, a blood splattered across the room. Naruto and Conan both moved closer to the man. He was downed on the floor, numerous lacerations covered his torso in a bloody display. Please? Naruto heard the man speaking in a faint, wheezing whisper. Spare my life, I shall do whatever you ask. The man spoke with fear evident in his voice. Free all those you have placed under slavery. Naruto responded bluntly, staring down at the man, who agreed without hesitation. He placed his hands together and muttered, Grim Reaper Angel Seal Release. Naruto looked towards Conan, who turned around to let him view his back. The large mark on her back began to fade, until it disappeared completely. She was free, his stance relaxed, as if a large weight she had burdened had finally been taken from her. Kisame and Darui ran up the stairs, meeting the other two. It was something Naruto had expected. The bouncers did not have magic, they could not compare to those who did. Darui locked eyes with the manager, and instantly fury appeared on his face. He moved towards him and grabbed him by his bloody collar, hoisting him upwards. Finally, I can have revenge for Goukai. He muttered angrily until he saw the man's look of confusion. Darui's enraged look only worsened. Goukai? Goukai Serafu? Do not tell me that you don't even remember her name, my sister's name? Darui's fist rose, about to strike the man before being stopped by Naruto. Wait, you are not the only one here who needs to be purified by the death of this man. Naruto responded calmly, before turning to Conan. Let the caged angel spread her wings and take flight once again. Darui looked over to the blue-haired girl, before turning to Naruto. Nodding, he dropped the man and began walking over to Conan. He's all yours. I don't need to commit the deed myself, I just need to see it happen, so my heart will believe it to be true. Conan nodded in response. She did not move save for slowly lifting her right arm. For the first time in 3 years. She muttered quietly, layers of her skin began to peel off, in perfect rectangular flat shapes, as if they were sheets of paper. As they left her body they turned canvas white, paper mask. The paper flew from her arm, each piece sticking to the man's face, eventually smothering his entire head in a thick mask of paper. The man struggled fiercely to free himself, yet more paper continued piling on. Until it was too late, the man ceased moving as did his frantically heaving chest. Asphyxiation was the price he paid for all his deeds. All four of them stared at his body. Before Naruto turned with a small smile on his face. It is done. You are free. He spoke directly to Conan, who in turn began laughing, something else she had not done for 3 years. Tears of joy fell from her eyes at the prospect. Something that was taken from her so long ago was finally back within her grasp. Freedom. Naruto stood with Kisame to his left, and his newest recruit Conan on the right. Conan had already decided to join his cause even without his consent, claiming that a debt had to be repaid to him for freeing her from her slavery. The three of them looked over to Darui, who stood alone in front of them, staring back at the blonde in the middle. "So what will you do now?" Naruto asked the shaggy white-haired man. Darui responded with a slow shrug of his shoulders. "I am free from my revenge now," he spoke with a small smile on his face, looking up to the bright sky. Yet the smile faltered, returning to a face of sadness. "Yet without it, or my sister, my life has no purpose. They had given my life a purpose, and now without either it has no meaning." "What about your profession?" Naruto responded to Darui's confusion, before the blonde pointing at his clothing. "Kisame tells me that is the uniform of the Abyss Brink prison guards, why not return to it?" Darui sighed heavily. "I have not been there in 3 years, my feelings for my sister had caused me to act improperly to the prisoners, the new head warden let me take a leave of absence for as long as I required, but I doubt I will ever return. That man, although he is powerful and charismatic, he is deranged, overly cautious to the point of paranoia." "Then join me." Naruto responded to his words. "You have displayed remarkable skills, and have shown the ability to let go of your past. Join my cause, and together we shall bring peace to this world. We will eradicate pain and suffering, ensuring that no one will ever suffer as your sister suffered. That is my promise, and I never go back on my promises," he finished with a smile on his face. Darui's eyes widened in surprise, before he smiled, chuckling to himself. "And how will you achieve that?" "First I must gather a powerful team together. Your skills will come of great use to me, and also your occupation." Naruto smirked at the end. Darui looked towards the blonde speculatively. "With you, I can enter the Abyss Brink prison and search for worthy recruits. There must be one among them with potential to help me." "I would not recommend it." Darui spoke sternly to the blonde. "Abyss Brink is saved for only the most despicable of mages, those who relish in destruction and death, those who have no desire to see peace." Darui explained to the blonde, who seemed affirmed to leave it then. However, Darui continued, catching the blonde's attention again. "There is one in there, one who is innocent of his crimes in mind. His magic poisons him to his very soul, turning him into a beast. Once he has been freed from its grip, he despises himself for his actions. He is the only person to ever willingly hand himself into the Abyss Brink. Then he may be a valuable ally." Naruto responded to the knowledge. "Come, we make our way towards the Abyss Brink prison." He turned around, Darui meeting his back. Darui suddenly appeared in front of him in a display of speed, their eyes locking at close range. "I know it's dull, but you should exercise caution if you plan to break in and out of the prison. The man I spoke of is one of the most heavily monitored prisoners, near the bottom levels of the prison. The prison itself also lies at the bottom of a fissure, its location covered by its mountainous range. Yet its location is not the most difficult factor if you plan escape. There is even worse things within the prison's walls." Darui spoke with full serious, his eyes never leaving the blondes. "The co-deputy wardens, Kinkaku and Ginkaku. The Gold and Silver brothers." Kisame grinned at the news. He knew of the two men. "Darui speaks the truth, Naruto. Them too, they are powerful men with extraordinary powers. You will not be able to slip past them so easily." "And the head warden? Who is he if them two are both deputy wardens?" Naruto responded, looking at Darui with narrowed eyes. Darui himself looking over to Kisame. "You seem to be the most knowledgeable and well-traveled. Perhaps you have heard of him, he who is bathed in eternal providence." "Mahisram Kyushutsu, he is the head warden." Kisame scoffed in hearty disbelief. "Your chances for this plan to work have just slimmed dramatically." "Who is he?" Konan asked with confusion. She had never heard the name before, it appeared even Naruto had never heard it before. Mahisram was a member of the Magic Council, responsible for bringing in dark mages for justice. He was chosen specifically by the council 4 years ago to become the new head warden after the Shuri incident of X-780, to contain the prison's newest monster. Why was he specifically chosen? And what was the Shuri incident? Naruto asked with confusion. Kisame quickly rustled through his bag, taking out his large map once again. He pointed to the large island south of Minutes and northwest of Midi. That island there was the country of Shuri. Kisame stated. What happened to it? Konan asked. It was a large piece of land, for an entire country of that size to disappear? Mahisram's brother happened. Kisame returned, to the surprise of Konan and Naruto. Mork's Kyushutsu, the one bathed in eternal damnation. Mahisram's young twin brother, Mork's, was unlike his brother. He discovered a forbidden ultimate magic, on par with Makarov's fairy law. Ragnarok, a dangerous, destructive magic. Mork's used it to destroy his hometown, and its surrounding country of Shuri in X-780. The death toll. 50 feet 000, 000. Everything was wiped out in an instant. Mihizrum was the only one who could match him, the only one who could defeat Morks. And he did. He captured his brother and sent him to the darkest depths of Abyss Brink prison. Then Mihizrum was selected as the new head warden of the prison, to keep his brother contained in its walls, so an atrocity like the Shuri incident would never happen again. Darui finished. Naruto stood in silence for a few moments, before speaking. It is still a worthy risk. Even this Morks could be a powerful ally. I don't even need to release him, if I could just come face to face with him and discover his true ideals and intentions. Very well, if I am going to join you, I should at least know your names. Darui spoke in return, standing in front of all three of them. Naruto Uzumaki, Kisame Hoshigaki, Konan Aim. Each of them introduced themselves to the dark-skinned man, before a sudden ringing sound struck their ears. The sound came from Naruto's bag. He quickly routed through it and found the source. It was a communication lacrima. I had forgotten that I had this, Naruto thought, as he channeled a small amount of magic into the lacrima. Suddenly a familiar, white-haired face appeared in the lacrima. It was Mirajane. Tears stained her cheeks as she sobbed loudly. Naruto, I'm sorry, but I didn't know where else to turn. I can't get into contact with Mistgun and Laxus. The girl sobbed loudly over the lacrima. Fairy Tail is at war with Phantom Lord. One of their members attacked Levi, Jet and Droi. But we're losing, Naruto. Please, we need your help. Naruto's eyes hardened as he stared at the lacrima. And why should I help Fairy Tail? This is your mess, not my own. I am free of that mark now. He responded with anger evident in his voice. It's Master Makarov, Naruto. Mira responded. He's hurt. Really bad. Naruto's eyes widened to their maximum. Memories of himself and the old mind replayed themselves through his mind. Each one of him possessing a large grin. Makarov sharing the beaming smile. Makarov. Minato Namikaze, by age 19, had become the commanding officer for magical law enforcement for the Magic Council, as well as holding a seat amongst the Magic Council itself, being one of the 10 governing mages. He had even been nominated for a spot amongst the 10 wizard saints, with a vacancy being created by the betrayal of Isider Ferdefo, who was combated by, and eventually captured and contained by Minato himself. 1 year later, a flee-on-site order was given to Rune Knights by the Magic Council for the event that Minato entered a battlefield, to reduce the risk of the Rune Knights being caught in his magic. Magical abilities. Mages who had come into contact with Minato claimed that his powers were beyond all imagining. Rumors speculate that his natural speed was so developed, he could react and dodge an attack from point-blank range. Others suggest he was in possession of God's leg magic, and some style of sensory magic to predict danger. However, his magical powers include powerful sealing magic, along with runes magic, and his own created version of runes, known as tag. His prowess lied in the lost magic involving spatial manipulation and teleportation. Finally, even rumors speculated that he was a slayer mage even above dragon slayers, as his colleagues believed his lightning magic could kill the thunder god himself. You seem to have taken quite an interest in Minato, haven't you, Naruto? The old Makarov snapped Naruto out of his trance. The young boy looked up at the old man and smiled. He was enjoying his time at Fairy Tail. He had already been there for 2 years. How could I not? There is so little written about him, Makarov. Naruto replied, keeping the smile on his face. The small blonde boy pointed his small fingers to a stack of 4 books. That was all I could find on him, and they all pretty much say the same thing. Just about his time in the council, nothing about what he saw that changed him, nothing about his revolution and rebellion. Was it a bad thing? What he did, Makarov? No, it was inspiring. Makarov replied with a large grin of his own. Never have I seen one man literally take on the world like he did, and I've lived for a really long time. Look at the people who published the books, they all come through the Magic Council, and they don't like people talk about their failures. But what did he see, Makarov? Was he close to succeeding in his goal? Naruto asked, throwing even more questions at the small old man. Makarov only patted the sitting Naruto on the head. It is not wise to dwell on the past, young Naruto, especially at your age. Remember this. Every second of the day, your future is on the line. And the past should make you better, not bitter. Naruto could only look back down to the picture of the blonde man in the book. But I don't know why, Makarov, but I just feel connected to him somehow. Me and Minato, we're so alike. We've seen things that changed us. We both worked for the council, but something tells me, and I don't know what, but it tells me that there is a deeper connection between me and him. Makarov could only chuckle inwardly, hiding the smirk trying to grow on his face. You have no idea, Naruto. Flashback break. Conan. Did you get the information Naruto asked for? Kisame asked the young girl. Noticing her return to where he and Darui sat, they had continued slightly further past the town to avoid authorities, reaching a small forest surrounding a river, which was the water supply for Lorinoms. The girl gave a small scowl at the question. Of course, I wouldn't let Naruto down. This assignment was too easy for me, she replied with slight irritation, before noticing the lack of their blonde leader. Where is he anyway? Further ahead, he needed time to think about the current situation. Kisame replied with a smirk, noticing the girl taking one more step forward, and he specifically asked for privacy while he thinks. The blue-haired girl's scowl grew slightly, before she moved to sit down. Kisame could only grin and chuckle at the girl's poorly hidden disappointment at being denied alone time with Naruto. Before he turned to the white-haired member of their group, Darui had spent most of the time staring at the small fire they had created, lost in his own dull little world. Something on your mind, Darui? Kind of, the white-haired man replied. I helped you back in Lorinoms for my sister. But now that is over, I wonder if I should continue on with you. I know next to nothing about either you or Naruto. What kind of men are you? Why do you follow Naruto? We are men looking for peace in the world, and peace in ourselves. Kisame replied quite seriously, staring blankly at the fire in front of him. I could see it the moment I met him, in his eyes, in the way he held himself. Naruto will change the world. That's what I believe. And I follow him because I've never noticed that in anyone before. But will he change the world for the better? Or for the worse? Darui responded solemnly. This Naruto, he could read nothing from him, other than power, and drive to achieve his goals. Do you doubt him, Darui? Kisame asked with a joker's grins. From what I've seen of the world, it couldn't get any worse. Darui stared at the large blue-haired figure in front of him. What is your story, Kisame? Kisame's brow rose at the question, before he sighed heavily. I have lived a life of lies, fooled into believing that light guilds are justice and truth. But light guilds are just as corrupt as dark guilds. If you don't believe in their way, they will do everything to change your mind. To prove they are truth. I once was part of a guild, I had friends, and a guild master I respected over all other men. But then I discovered he was selling information about light guilds and the council to the dark guild Tartaros. So myself and 6 others from the guild took it upon ourselves to destroy our guild, and kill our master. That was when I first realized the lies of the world. We destroyed, murdered, obliterated, yet we were praised for our deeds, told we did the world a great service by removing that source of information. We killed innocent members of our guild to ensure no vengeance would be taken, but we were not labeled as dark mages for our actions. The 6 of us broke off, each following our own paths. My best friend, Zabuza Momochi, started his own guild, and for a time I considered joining him at his guild. But I heard that he died a few weeks ago, and that would make me the last surviving member of the 7. I have suffered more than them all, for I have to live with the lies force upon me. Kisame finished the story, never taking his eyes off the flickering flames and floating embers. Naruto's goal is to destroy Tartaros, and I will gladly follow him and achieve his goal standing by his side. That's his goal? Darui asked with surprise to the revelation. At least it isn't a dull one, he added with a heavy sigh. I know nothing about this Tartaros, but I will follow Naruto to hell and back to help him any way I can. Konan added her input to the conversation. He saved me from my pain and misery. He freed me from the darkness. That is a debt that is not easily repaid. Tartaros, Darui mused quietly. The dark guild that everyone believed lost its power when its leaders, the 7 princes of hell, fell in battle to Itachi Uchiha 8 years ago. And Grimoire Heart became the pinnacle of the Balam alliance after the 7 princes of hell's fall. I, however, disbelieve. Tartaros became more reclusive. Their activities disappeared from public ears. The Dark Guild does not simply do that without being destroyed. Tartaros is regrouping, building its power, waiting for their all-powerful leaders to return. Tartaros is still the most powerful Dark Guild. Which leads me to my next questions. Are you yourselves dark mages? Darui asked, his fist clenching with anticipation for the answer. What is a dark mage? They all turned at the unexpected arrival of the young blonde mage who answered his question. Someone who has no disregard for the rules. For life. These do not define a dark mage, these define a monster, and even dark mages can work towards a positive goal. It is just deemed negative by the rest of the world. One person's convictions are entirely different to another. This is what the world does not understand. Darui stared at Naruto as he listened to his words. And who are you to define people and their convictions? Someone who has lived a life in the light, and a life in darkness. I belong to a bright light, fairy tale, yet my powers kept me from my comrades. Before that I worked for the council, the brightest light of all, yet they used me to perform their darkest deeds. The thing about light is, the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows. Tartaros, the magic council, even fairy tale, they have taken so much from me. So I will destroy Tartaros, and afterwards I will locate the ancient magic Fantasia. With it, no one will be able to deny me. I will create utopia through it. I shall bring peace and equality for everyone. The blonde finished before looking to Conan. Did you get the information? Yes. Conan responded with a shy nod. Phantom Lord's Gajeel Redfox launched an attack on 3 of Fairy Tail's members, but it was Fairy Tail that declared war in retaliation. They launched an all-out attack on Phantom Lord's headquarters. If a light guild declares war against another, the council will intervene, disbanding the guild that declared war and arrest and imprison its members. Darui pointed out. Naruto smirked at the knowledge. Yes, this will work out perfectly. He mused as plans began formulating in his mind. So what's the plan? Kisame asked with interest. I will use this war to get into the Abyss Brink prison. Naruto responded with a smirk. I head to the battlefield alone. Conan, use your paper magic to keep me in contact with yourself and Kisame. Darui, head back to Abyss Brink prison now. I will need help on the inside as well. But how are you going to get in? You're not a member of Fairy Tail anymore. Conan asked inquisitively, pointing out an obvious flaw in Naruto's plan. Naruto's smirk morphed into a smile, one showing remembrance and consideration. I will rely solely on the actions of another. If I know him like I do, he will not turn this opportunity down. I haven't agreed to help you yet, Darui answered in a matter-of-fact tone. I believe you already have. Naruto responded in a similar tone. You've had all day to separate from our group, yet you've stayed, asked questions about our goals. Someone does not do that without being a spy. But who do you have to spy for? We relate to you, we know your pain. That's why you will stay and help our cause. Naruto finished before vanishing, a small cloud of dust left behind from where he once stood. This is Fairy Tail. Urza screamed towards the Phantom Lord's headquarters, morphed into a robot with a Jupiter cannon staring right at her, recharging for another blast, her armor broken and cracked, her body bruised and cut from intercepting the first blast from the cannon. Yet still she was unyielding, her arms spread wide ready to intercept the second blast. We will never back down. Especially when our friends have put everything on the line. That is our pride. Her speech was futile. The Jupiter cannon fired again, firing right at her. She knew she wouldn't survive a second blast from the cannon, but it didn't matter. If it was her, or all of Fairy Tail, she would gladly put her life on the line. A small smile grew on her face as the blast closed in on her. In a blinding light, the blast connected, obscuring everyone's vision as the members of Fairy Tail screamed out her name, telling her to move. The blast shook the ground, knocking Fairy Tail members off their feet. However, when the light faded, Fairy Tail members' faces turned from horrifying shock to utter shock. Even Urza appeared in shock at the events. She was left no more harmed by the second blast. Her arms dropped as she stared in awe and shock. Standing between her and the blast, a familiar head of spiky blonde hair stood in front of her, only changed by small black streaks running through it. A hand extended forwards towards the blast, blocking it completely from coming closer. And Naruto. That was weak. He spoke calmly, lowering his arm back to his side. He turned to face Fairy Tail. Then they noticed the change in him. His clothes had changed to plain white cloth. His pants were baggy and canvas white with a black tight belt around his waist holding them up and black boots at the bottom of them. His torso was exposed and uncovered, though he wore a long canvas white sleeveless cloak, which hung loosely over his body. But it was his facial expression, despite his private and reclusive actions in Fairy Tail. When the members had seen him, his face always held a warm aura of acceptance. Now it had changed. His eyes had dulled to a cold hard stare. His face held anything but warmth and acceptance. His brow was furrowed slightly. There was no other emotion in his face, not even anger at what had happened to his previous guild and its members. What are you doing here? Urza asked in shock, still staring at the blonde mage in awe. You have Mira and Makarov to that for my attendance. The blonde replied coldly. Mira contacted me through the communication Lacrima. And Makarov, I owe a debt to Makarov. Something I aim to repay now. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't even be here. Urza's eyes widened at the cold, harsh words he spoke. She knew him well enough to know he would never speak anything such as that. What happened to you? The other members of Fairy Tail began cheering nonetheless at his arrival. Another S-class mage had joined the fray for them. Naruto was their savior. Go ahead towards Jose, Urza. Naruto ordered, turning back around to face the incoming Phantom Lord members. I'll deal with this trash here. Urza nodded at his orders, starting to run towards the Phantom Lord headquarters. Naruto only stared at the Phantom Lord mages, before slapping his palms together. Clone. Battle Ender. On cue, 2,000 large balls of magic poured from Naruto's body. Larger than what he usually put into his clone magic, each one transforming into a complete replica of him. Within seconds, one man had become an army. Each clone slapped their hands together, looking at the Phantom Lord army, which stopped at the sight of this new threat. Naruto then took a deep breath, pressing his hands tighter against one another, interlocking his fingers. Dysphoria. Phobia. All the clone began transforming once again, taking on a variety of appearances and forms. Monsters, animals, even different people. All the members of Phantom Lord began trembling and quivering at the sight of the new army, each one looking at a different transformed clone. Phobia is one of Dysphoria's ultimate spells, allowing you to take on the form of what your opponent fears most. With Clone, it can silence and suck the fighting spirit out of a battalion. Naruto explained as his hands escaped the other, before pointing his right index finger towards the Phantom Lord members. Attack. His clone monsters sped towards the Phantom Lord army at the real Naruto's instigation, attacking every member without hesitation. The real Naruto, however, looked up towards the Jupiter cannon on the headquarters. It should have recharged and been preparing a third blast by now, he noted as he stared at the cannon, which did nothing. He wasted no time in hopes the cannon would fire again. He sped towards the headquarters at a great speed, before launching himself up high into the air, clearing over the cannon and landing gracefully on it. Mei Furyu no Sangaku Choko. With one great swipe of his arm, a blade of dark wide sliced quickly and easily through the cannon, slicing it directly down the middle into two halves, rendering it useless from there on out. He turned towards the battlefield again, seeing it being flooded with shades. How will I deal with them? At that moment Makarov entered the battlefield once again, full of energy, his face brimming with fury. Naruto only smirked at the old man. Judgment, he uttered only one word as he watched the old man effortlessly walk through the battlefield and into the headquarters. Fairy law is upon us. After all this, Makarov still does not view me as a foe or enemy. Not even as a threat. Naruto thought as he stood at a distance from the fairy tale members regrouping. It was over when Makarov arrived. Once he performed the ultimate magic fairy law, the war ended. A powerful magic that attack everyone the user deems as an enemy with a powerful, blinding light. And Naruto remained completely unharmed. Naruto. He heard the aged man call to him, snapping him out of his thoughts. He looked up to see all of Fairy Tail looking at him with gratitude. You came to us in our time of need, despite you not having to do so. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, for making it so no more pain was inflicted on my children in this battle. I owed you a great debt, Makarov. One that is not so easily repaid. I figure saving your guild would be ample repayment, as it saved me. The blonde mage answered bluntly, his arms crossed as he leaned against a piece of rubble. Does this mean you are rejoining Fairy Tail? I'm itching for a fight. Natsu asked eagerly. The rest of the guild seemed to focus in once the question was asked. No, I have my own path to follow, one that Fairy Tail cannot help me with. You would only hold me back from my goals. He answered coldly, his brow furrowed as he answered. Well, I've still got enough juice left in the tank to fight you now. Natsu screamed as he ran towards the blonde, his fist cocked backwards ready to strike. Naruto's palm connected with the rosy-haired mage's face, halting his movements with a tight grip. With ease, Naruto lifted Natsu off the ground with one hand. Did you learn nothing from last time, Natsu? I'm on a whole new level compared to you. And now I'm even stronger than before. He soaked before he threw Natsu back to the Fairy Tail group. The rosy-haired mage landed on his back as he hit the ground. You've changed, Naruto. Makarov pointed out, his eyes narrowing towards the blonde. In my eyes, everything else has changed. Naruto replied quickly and bluntly. A loud, mocking laugh began resonating through the air. The whole Fairy Tail turned to the source. Sasuke Uchiha stood with his arms spread wide, his head back as he laughed in a mocking tone. An entire battalion of Rune Knights stood behind him. Finally, he screamed almost joyously. Years of patience and waiting have finally bared fruit. Retribution is at hand. He screamed before his laughing stopped, but a wide, grinning smile still survived on his face before he pointed to Fairy Tail. Fairy Tail. For instigating a war against the council recognized, legal guild Phantom Lord, for mass destruction of its headquarters and in fury of its members against council law and wishes, I am hereby placing you under arrest. You don't know how long I have waited for this moment. Sasuke roared with mocking victory, his laughter filled the once happy atmosphere. Years of training, struggling, surviving and hoping, all leading to this one singular moment. Sasuke. Makarov barked back angrily, brimming with fury at the raven-haired boy's glee. Too long I have put up with your prejudice against Fairy Tail. Now I will ask you a question I know you fear answering. Sasuke quietened down to allow the aged man to speak. The glee had wiped from his face as he waited for this question. Are you really willing to stamp on Itachi's legacy by destroying us? Would you really take out his family? Yours. You were never my family. Sasuke screamed back violently. Utter rage filled his usually calm eyes. Don't speak to me about Itachi. I was his family, and you took him from me. You were never his family. Fairy tale. What about me then, Sasuke? Naruto stepped forward, locking eyes with Sasuke's onyx. Sasuke's eyes narrowed towards the blonde. Naruto? He asked with confusion. He could tell something was different about him, not by appearance. The aura surrounding him had changed drastically. It was no longer calm and confident. It was colder. To Sasuke, who had known Naruto's cheerful side extensively, it was frightening. This war with Phantom Lord was my doing. Naruto spoke, shocking the members of Fairy Tail. Naruto turned to Makarov, who looked at him speechless. I saw what had happened to Team Shadow Gear, and manipulated Fairy Tail to instigate revenge against Phantom Lord. I don't believe you. Naruto turned back to the raven-haired council member. His brow had furrowed to stare at him with speculation. I know you, Naruto. You wouldn't use dysphoria to push people towards such barbarism for something like revenge. You don't even like using dysphoria. Your words have confirmed that it is within my power to do so nonetheless. Naruto responded easily. Prove to everyone that what I said is a lie. Is there any evidence that suggests otherwise? Fairy Tail might have strong beliefs against crimes against their comrades. But with the trouble they're in with the council already, Makarov wouldn't attack another guild with an act of war. I won't arrest you, Naruto. Sasuke responded bluntly to his blonde friend. This was a war instigated by Fairy Tail, even if you claim to have been the culprit behind it. As you are no longer a mage of Fairy Tail, you cannot be held accountable. But the warrant for my arrest still stands. Naruto smirked knowingly to Sasuke's mild surprise. I know as well as I do what the council has ordered. What the hell are you two talking about? Natsu yelled in frustration after listening to the two older mages speak between each other. Naruto continued to look at Sasuke, not bothering to turn and face Fairy Tail. Without being aligned to the council or to a guild, the council now view me as the biggest threat to the current world because of dysphoria, because of the secrets I know. The only reason the council didn't arrest me sooner was because you and I believed I would be kept in check under Makarov. Isn't that right, Sasuke? Naruto's smirk grew a little bit more, seeing Sasuke's lip purse with annoyance. Your orders are to arrest me on sight, are they not? You were never here, Naruto. Sasuke responded coldly, his fists clenching. Don't make me do something I will regret. Leave now. You don't have a choice, Sasuke. I've admitted to instigating the Fairy Tail, Phantom Lord War. If the council learned how you let me go, they'll send you to prison with me. Sasuke stood silent, stared at the blonde's smirk. What's happened to you, Naruto? He sighed heavily, shaking his head slowly. Naruto, they'll send you there if you're arrested. Abyss Brink prison? Naruto smirked further. I'm counting on it. One last chance, Naruto. Sasuke slipped into a fighting stance, powerful magical aura rolled from his body. Members of Fairy Tail and Rune Knights struggled under the force of it. The earth vibrated powerfully from simply the aura of Sasuke's power. I will rescue you along with Fairy Tail, otherwise, I've waited too long to just let them go now. You will leave Fairy Tail alone this day. Naruto remained still, yet his own aura was released. If the power wasn't horrible before, it exceeded palpable now. Cracks form along the crust of the earth where their auras met. Rune Knights and Fairy Tail members fell to their knees under the sheer weight of these two presences, suffocating from the power of these two great mages. Mei Furyu no Hoko. Naruto moved first, inhaling deeply before letting loose a pitch-black cyclone of wind from his mouth. This is different. Sasuke smirked, his eyes changing from their usual onyx black to deep red, 3 spinning tomo in each eye. Copy wheel eye. Sasuke's eyes widened with horror after the attempt to copy this new magic Naruto displayed. Instead of seeing vast quantities of formulas, instructions and data, he saw but one thing. A ferocious dragon, with glimmering jet-black scales, its large teeth snarling at him. Sasuke was blown back from his spot, landing against a large rock torn up from the war. He fell down to the ground, his loud screams of agony filled the air as he clutched his eyes. He looked up towards the blonde. His eyes were heavily bloodshot and had returned to their onyx state. Blood poured down both his cheeks like crimson tears. His teeth were stained crimson from the blood from his eyes seeping into his mouth. Rune Knights, arrest Naruto Uzumaki, he ordered with a fury. The knights surrounded the blonde, who seemed to put up very little resistance. Naruto. The members of Fairy Tail, on the other hand, jumped to his defense. You didn't have anything to do with this. Phantom Lord had it coming to them after attacking Shadow Gear. Natsu yelled, leading the charge to Naruto's aid. Stand down. Naruto glared at them. Suddenly Fairy Tail began losing their fighting spirit. Staring quietly at the blonde who glared at them. Do not concern yourself with this. I did what I did knowing of the consequences. You owe me nothing, Fairy Tail. Rune Knights snapped handcuffs around Naruto's wrists, circling him before pulling him away slowly. Do not follow me, this is a path you cannot walk. Naruto was successful. Kisame smirked as Conan relayed the message after returning in a flock of rustling paper caught on the wind. Yes, I believe there is no trial being held for him, he is being moved straight to the Abyss Brink. Conan responded dully, slightly annoyed at how this man had taken charge after Naruto had left. Time to fulfill your end of the plan, Darui. Kisame turned to the white-haired man, who stood in a sluggish manner. Darui nodded in return. It's dull, but you can count on me, I'll earn your trust yet, he commented as he began to walk away from the blue-haired duo. What do we do now? Conan asked the larger mage as they watched the third member of their team leave. Naruto gave us our own assignment. Kisame let off a wide grin. Phase 1 search for a particular mage while Naruto remains incarcerated. Naruto believes he will be useful to the cause. Phase 2 scout for any other potential recruits to the team. And Phase 3 await and prepare for Naruto's escape. Kisame chuckled knowingly. Escape was too soft a word for what Naruto had planned. He planned to release Mork's Kyushutsu, even if only temporary, Cataclysm is sure to follow. He plans to use utter destruction of the prison for escape. Kisame chuckled even louder at the blonde's future antics as he began to walk in a different direction to Darui. Who did Naruto-sama say is this mage? Conan asked as she caught up to Kisame, annoyed how she seemed to have been left out of pivotal parts of the plan. Kisame shrugged his shoulders lazily in response to her question. Naruto said his name is Gaara, or something like that. We're gonna go after Naruto immediately. Natsu yelled angrily to the members of Fairy Tail. Other members had rallied behind him. Elfman, Gray, Jet, Droy, Lucy all stood waiting for Makarov's approval. We can't let him sacrifice himself because of us. It's impossible, just let it pass. Makarov said sternly, yet deep contemplation was written on his face. How can we let it pass? Natsu's blood boiled even further at Master Makarov's remark on the situation. Multiple reasons. Makarov replied rather easily. No one knows where Abyss Brink prison is, even members of the council don't know its location. Only its employees and the highest ranking in the Magic Council do, and they'll never disclose its location. Second of all, the prison was built to house the most notorious of men, it's an impenetrable fortress. Third, you'll never make it in, and even by some amazing luck you do, you'll never make it out alive. Mahizram Kyushutsu, the Gold and Silver Brothers Kinkaku and Ginkaku, and hundreds of other powerful mages employed as guards will decimate anyone who enters without permission, that is their orders, their duty. Natsu's face filled to grim fury at the impossible odds now stacked against their plan. Besides, Makarov continued, his face saddened deeply as he looked towards the ground. That wasn't the Naruto that left our guild. Something's happened, something has changed in him. I hate to say this, but I feel like I can't risk any of you being around him until we've found out more about him. Damn it. A fist connected to an impeccable canvas white wall, cracking under the force. Sasuke gritted his teeth as he cursed angrily. His eyes had healed after that strange occurrence with Naruto, yet they still strained to have the perfect vision they once had, yet they were healing, slowly but surely. Yet it wasn't his eyes that angered him, it was that blonde mage. He thought he knew Naruto inside and out, nothing was hidden between the two of them, how did he not foresee this? The change in Naruto. Was Fairy Tail really the best place to keep Naruto? Without them, Naruto seemed darker, less interested in Sasuke's attacks against them. Naruto, because of the injury to his eyes, he had to let Fairy Tail go. He didn't have the manpower with him at the time to restrain the guild as well. He planned to do it all himself, and Uranai confirmed Naruto was behind the war through the use of dysphoria. Fairy Tail eluded his grasp after he was so close. Why have you done this? Sasuke, he heard his name being called. Looking, he saw Ultir watching him with concern on her face. I know how hard this was for you. Naruto was like a brother to you. To arrest him and have to watch him be sent there as well. If the council trusted me enough with its location, I would have escorted Naruto to Abyss Brink myself. Sasuke muttered back angrily. Or allow him to escape on the way. Ultir smiled as Sasuke whipped around to face her after hearing the accusation. That was their biggest fear, they know of the bond you two share. They were worried you would allow, even help Naruto to escape. Sasuke gritted his teeth even more as a snarl escaped his mouth. He couldn't lie to himself. He probably would have let Naruto free if he was charged with escorting him. Naruto had done much for him. He showed him that he wasn't alone. Their routine fights became less like battles and more like extensive training between friends, between brothers. The council may not let you know Abyss Brink's location, but the council does trust you, Sasuke. Ultir smiled him, handing him a sealed envelope. Your newest assignment. Hopefully this shows you how much we trust you. Sasuke looked at the black-haired woman speculatively, snatching the envelope from her hand, before opening it. His eyes squinting as he scanned over the documents inside. His eyes snapped open wide with shock, his mouth hung agape. This new mission, it was unreal. This is. Yes. Ultir smirked, already knowing the assignment given. We've finally found Tartaro's most prized possession. Lucifer's most valued item. The demonic mirrors. Your assignment is to capture them. Return them here, Sasuke. If unable to, then destroy them. Sasuke nodded, slipping the document back into their envelope. Oh, and Sasuke, Ultir continued, slowly moving towards him, lifting her head to plant a soft kiss on his cheek, dangerously close to the corner of his lips. Good luck, she whispered as she pulled away. Sasuke's eyes narrowed towards her because of her actions, but didn't waste time pondering on them. He turned and walked down the hall of the council building to prepare for his assignment. Ultir sighed heavily, leaning against the wall with mild frustration. He still won't crack under my charms. Did he take the bait anyway? A new male voice spoke. Ultir looked upwards. A confident smirk arose from her tightly pursed lips. Seagrain stood across the hall from her, leaning against the wall with a calm look on his own face. Yes. Sasuke will be out of the way for the next phase of our plan, Jelal-sama. Ultir smirked as a cunning fox would towards her masquerading master. Excellent. He's too powerful for his own good. I won't take any chances with Sasuke running around the council when the time arrives. Seagrain let a victorious smile grow on his own face as he chuckled quietly. If only I could have persuaded him to join me sooner. There is still time to do that, Jelal-sama. Ultir spoke back, offering the suggestion. If you could just wait a few more. No, the time is upon us now. Seagrain cut in mid-flow of her sentence. The R system is ready. I won't waste any more time. I've been waiting 8 years for this moment. Naruto, Uranai Hoshi, chairman of the Magic Council, sat across the cart from the chained Naruto. The blonde stared back at his withered face blankly. You were as a grandson to me, you still are. What in the world has happened to you? Nothing, Uranai. Naruto commented bluntly to the old man's question. To me, something has happened to everything else. My perceptions, my beliefs. They have been proven false. This is the reality we live in, falsified to satisfy the needs of some in the expense of others. You know I have tried to change that. I've sought equality for all mages, but it's not easy to change a whole organization's beliefs overnight. Uranai sighed heavily in response. But it can be done. Naruto responded. Uranai's eyes widened with horror at the look Naruto gave him. Where was the sweet, innocent, timid boy from days past? Had he been devoured by this monster lurking in the darkness before him? The monster, he himself, had helped create. Uranai couldn't think of a way to respond. He couldn't read what went through the young blonde's mind at this moment. He looked out the window of their cart. You've received quite the honor, Naruto. A small smile grew on the old man's face. You've been escorted to Abyss Brink by the chairman of the Magic Council, and it appears the head warden himself is here to greet out at the front gate. Mahizram. Naruto uttered out the man's name, almost anticipating the meeting between himself and the man. Promise me, Naruto. Uranai looked at him with concerned eyes, almost pleading. Promise me you will not aggravate Mahizram. He is beyond a force of reckoning when set to a task. His being here is only preparing him for the time he takes my place as chairman of the Magic Council. Naruto's brow rose with surprise. The chairman of the Magic Council is usually one of the, if not the most powerful mage on the continent. And Mahizram is preparing for that duty. The cart stopped, and the door flung upon. Out. A rune knight ordered him. Naruto rose from his seat, stepping out into the light. Or what little of light there was. He looked upwards. Earth walls rose thousands of feet above him, the sun being visible from the top, yet it was artificial light that kept the place bright. Should have guessed by the name it would be at the bottom of something, but a fissure? Naruto looked up with interest. Scaling out of this place would be a bother. He looked towards the cart, seeing Uranai giving him a pained look before closing the door once again. He and the cart being rising by engine lacrima. Throughout the journey it felt as though they were riding on a road, to think they were actually flying to the destination. They've been well prepared to keep its location concealed. Naruto of the left-hand path. The Magni Magi met us. Naruto turned. There stood a man, surrounded by men wearing similar uniforms to Darui. But this man, he had similar sparkling blue eyes like himself, and held a warm, calm and collected smile on his face. His hair was canvas white, set in thick locks spiking upwards and sleeked back, with longer ones at the side of his head and 2 falling over his forehead. 2 more extraordinary long locks grew from the back of his head, reached down past his back, He was adorned in a long white coat, trailing far behind his body and buckled up with belts. More belts were fastened on the back, leading to gray cloth tied to the back of the cloak. Underneath he wore gray pants leading into boots a similar color to his hair and cloak. Covering his hands were a pair of matching gray gloves. My name is Mahizram Kyushutsu. Welcome to the Abyss Brink prison. The end. Thanks for watching. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.